Don't make these mistakes when selling your tenanted property in Ontario. My name's Daniel Hale and I'm a licensed real estate agent in Ontario, and I work with a ton of landlords, which means I sell a lot of tenanted properties. And I'm gonna share with you guys the mistakes that I see happen all the time when people call me and they try to sell tenanted properties and they don't have experience doing this. These are the mistakes that I wanna make sure you guys avoid. And please don't forget to subscribe because it does help me a lot. Mistake number one, not giving your tenant enough notice when you are selling the property. I recommend you tell them at least 1 to 2 weeks before the property hits the market. This makes sure that they don't freak out, they don't panic. Maybe they start searching for their own place and getting themselves organized. If you just take that for sale sign and you slap it on the front lawn and you let them know about a day before, it starts things off on a bad foot. They're gonna have some animosity and they're gonna be a little bit upset. So give them at least a notice of 1 to 2 weeks. Now, just so you know, it's not mandatory in Ontario that you do that. I just recommend to start things off on a good foot. The next mistake is not discussing what could happen to the tenancy with the tenant when you sell the property. This is very important because when you discuss what could happen to their tenancy, whether they're staying or they could get evicted for the buyer's personal use, they're gonna know right away that you know what you're doing, and they're gonna respect the process even more, and they won't be able to walk all over you. Which leads me to my next biggest mistake. Not knowing who you can actually sell the property to in Ontario. When you're selling a tenanted property in Ontario, you can sell it to somebody that's going to move in for their own personal use. If it is an investor, the investor must assume the tenancy unless you guys work out a cash for keys agreement or that tenant signs an N11 notice to end the tenancy and they actually agree to move out and find another place. If they don't, you do not sell it to an investor and promise vacant possession. You can only sell it to somebody that's looking to move in and occupy the property for their own personal use, and then you can evict the tenant. Investor must assume the tenant or come to a cash for keys agreement or have them sign an N11. When you know this, that's gonna help you avoid a lot of mistakes and keep you out of any legal trouble. Now, the next biggest mistake, hiring a real estate agent that has never sold a tenanted property before. You need to make sure that your real estate agent has sold many tenanted properties and they have a lot of experience doing so. Let me explain why this is super important. They will know the rights of the landlord and tenant board to be able to discuss them with the tenant so that the tenant knows there is somebody that is more of an authority figure that has done this before and they know what they're doing. This will save you a lot of stress and a lot of headache, and you don't have to go down the rabbit hole of trying to research everything on Google and figure these things out for yourself. And the next biggest thing is that realtor will make sure that you do not get in any legal trouble with the buyer or with that tenant and you don't get sued. I've seen this happen time and time again. Landlords calling me, people panicking because they've promised vacant possession on a specific date. The tenant decides that they're not moving out, they're gonna go to the landlord and tenant board hearing, or the real estate agent sells it to an investor, evicts the tenant, and then the tenant claims that it was a wrongful eviction, comes back after you, and you get a big fine from the landlord and tenant board. Make sure these things don't happen. Now, the next thing that real estate agent's gonna do for you, which is super, super important, they're going to be able to discuss with the buyer and the buyer's real estate agent, if they have one, how they can get you vacant possession and make sure that they get you vacant possession, which will give the buyer and the buyer's real estate agent more confidence that that agent knows what they're doing, and they'll be more comfortable going into an agreement of purchase and sale with you and actually purchasing the property because they'll know that the person that's selling the property can get this done for them and actually help them move into the property that they want to live in. Now, let's talk about when it's time to go on the market and before you go on the market. The next biggest mistake, do not let your tenant tell you, please just give me 3 more months, 4 more months, 5 more months, I will move out and I will find another place. This I see happen all the time. And a lot of times it happens when the tenant's well under market value rent. they're not gonna move out. A lot of times, I hate to say this, they're just telling you that so that they can kick the ball down the street and stay longer. You need to put the property on the market if you're looking to sell that property. This will get showings started. Tenants won't want to live there because the showings are happening. That is the truth. And they will start making plans a lot quicker, which will only help you. If they move out before you sell, take it off the market, clean it up, stage it, do whatever you need to do to sell it for more money, but put the property on the market right away. It will also show the tenant that you're serious about selling because they might not even believe you that you're selling. Sometimes if a tenant is under market value, they don't believe the landlord when the landlord tells them that they want to sell. They think, oh, this person just wants me out so that they can rent it higher. And that's not the case. You're trying to sell your property, put it on the market. Don't listen to just give me 6 months or any of that stuff. Start the process because it's only going to help you later. Next biggest mistake I see all the time. When you put your rental property on the market for sale, the tenant will request a showing schedule. This is an absolute no-no. You do not let the tenant request a showing schedule unless they are cooperating with you to the fullest. They're allowing you to take photos because in Ontario they have the right to say no photos. Hopefully you have some if they do not allow this. But if they let you take photos, they're accommodating with maybe a cash for keys settlement or an N11 and agreeing to move out on a specific date, I will have some leniency with this. But if they are absolutely just not allowing you to do any of these things, do not allow the tenant to have a showing schedule. You need to let them know that you are in control. The hours that you can show the property are Monday to Sunday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Anything before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. is not within the landlord and tenant board guidelines and you cannot do it. The next thing is you're gonna wanna give notice to the tenant correctly. If you have a lease agreement that states on there at the very top, there's a checkbox that says the landlord and tenant agree to deliver notices through email, you can send them showing notices through email. If they do not, and that's checked off as no, or you don't have a lease agreement at all, if the tenant knows their rights, they can actually tell you that you have to post a notice on the door so that you can get access to the property to show that property. Now, all notices, no matter how you send them through email or posting on the door, has to be 24 hours notice unless the tenant agrees to an earlier showing time and they're being super cooperative. Then that's cool. And that's ideally what you want, to have both parties working together. That does help a lot. But if you're not, and maybe you have a bad tenant and there's issues amongst you guys, you gotta post the notices correctly. Now, if you don't have that lease agreement, you can't text them, you can't call them and tell them. But what you can do as a little bit of a trick is say, hey, how would you like to receive notices for showings? If they text you back and say, oh, you can text me or oh, you can email me, at least you have proof that they allowed you to do that and that's what they're requesting you to do. But if not, it is a bit annoying to have to post it on the door. The next mistake, not having proper access to the property. I've seen this happen so many times where landlords don't even have a key to their own rental property. Only the tenant has it. When the showings go and they can't get access, it's kind of embarrassing to them in front of their client that they can't get in, and it wastes their time, it wastes the buyer's time, everybody's upset, it's not good. It starts things off on a bad foot. So if you don't have a key, make sure you get one from the tenant that's put in a lockbox so they have access to the property. When you send the notice to show the property, they have the key. That realtor, you tell them to knock on the door before they enter, and the showing starts off on a good foot. If you don't tell them to knock on the door and the tenant's home, sometimes the tenant can get upset at them. It's a little embarrassing and things are a little bit awkward. So you want to make sure that the tenant knows they're coming, they knock on the door, they have access. Now the tenant does not have to be home during the showing. If they're not home, sometimes they'll say to you, oh, I'm not going to be home, please don't show the property. You can still show the property. They have the right to stay in the property during showing, but you also have the right to show the property if they're not home. If that tenant refuses giving you a key to access the property, you have the right to call a locksmith, send them notice, and change the locks. But if you do this, you must provide the tenant a key after you change the locks. Now the biggest mistake, probably the biggest mistake of them all, definitely is when you receive an offer and you accept that offer, you need to make sure that you have the proper clauses and conditions in that offer to keep you protected as the landlord. Do not ever guarantee the buyer vacant possession on a specific date. You need to have it in the agreement that you have the right to an extension if a landlord and tenant board hearing is needed to evict that tenant. Or the seller can extend the completion date to get the property vacant. This will help you make sure you do not get sued by the buyer. If they've sold their house, they've packed up all their stuff, they're looking to move in on that specific date, that buyer needs to be aware that there might be an extension, and if there's not an extension allowed, they can come after you and seek legal action or ask for compensation, a reduction of the sale price, which sucks. I've seen so many nightmares. Make sure you put the proper clauses and conditions in the agreement of purchase and sale. This will even help you if somebody's looking to buy it for their own personal use, because in there is going to state they agree to sign a declaration, they have given you permission to issue an N12 notice of eviction, which is a notice for the buyer's personal use. Whoever's buying that property, it's very important that you know what to put in that offer to keep you protected. Now, the last one I want to talk to you guys about real quick, not having a paralegal or somebody that can issue the notices correctly if you are asking for vacant possession. The notices must be filled out correctly. If you're doing an N12, any mistake on there can get thrown in the garbage. How you deliver it to the tenant, if it's not delivered properly, it can get thrown in the garbage. Waiting 4 to 5 months for a hearing date to only be told by the adjudicator, you did this wrong, you need to start over, is a complete waste of your time, a waste of the buyer's time, and it's super stressful because now you might lose the deal and you're definitely not gonna get that tenant evicted if you need to. So, hire a paralegal or hire somebody that has a team of paralegals and knows how to do this. If you're looking to sell your tenanted property anywhere in Ontario, feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, or send me a text. I'll help you guys sell for top dollar legally and make sure everything is done correctly. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.